A very good evening to our viewers. Thank you for joining us tonight on the Evening Review. My name is Toivo Jebela. Tonight on the platform we are joined by Seth Nowaseb. I hope I pronounced that correctly. He is a senior lecturer at the University of Namibia, but also an author in his own right, having authored this new book, How to Manage Impulse Buying and Get Your Finances Back on Track. This one here is the abridged version of that book, and Seth is here to talk not only about his book, but also about issues around that very subject of impulsive purchasing of or spending of money. Thank you, Mr. Nowaseb, for making time. What is interesting, and congratulations on the project, what I find interesting at the very end of your book here, you talk about your personal experiences, that you have experienced financial challenges and you successfully worked your way out of that. If you can reflect that before then we get into the general conversation. What did you go through?
Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me here. I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah.
Now, as a young man, I was studying abroad, and then I had challenges. I got credit cards. The credit cards were maxed up. There were various financial challenges that I had, where now you have basically the amount of money that you have, you are probably spending it a little bit more than you should. And at the end of the day, you end up with financial challenges of having quite a lot of the month left at the end of your money.
Yeah.
So basically there are 2 weeks left and you are running out of money. And the issue was now, what is happening? How do I get out of that? And it was around that time that I said, no, something has got to give. I have got to do something, because I cannot keep on going through this cycle. One of the first things that I did was to cut up the credit cards. Completely cut up the credit cards, get rid of it, and start paying off that debt that I had and other debts that I had. And in the process, I had to learn, okay, how do I budget? How do I look after my money so that I don't go through the same things around again? And it was around that I started to get my house in order. And it is in getting my house in order that I learned for myself that there are simple things that you can do. And that's where it all started.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. It's not very easy. I mean, getting into debts and all that sort of thing is easy, but getting out of it is the most difficult one.
Indeed.
With inflation, sometimes there's no increment in your salary. You might have then to cut down on your spending and whatnot. But I mean, for an adult man like yourself and me, where do you even start? Because the house, probably you're already bonded to that.
Yes.
The car, you can't be driving a car and then suddenly you're taking a younger to work.
Yes.
Which bits do you cut to come back on track?
Yeah, and that's where now the challenge that we have there are so many issues and there are so many challenges. There are some that you can cut, there are others that you cannot cut. But impulse spending, which these books are about, is one of those things which to some extent you can have control over it. Lots of people don't think they do have control over it. Now, the advertising, the emotional challenges that we have, the frustrations and stuff would often allow us to spend money that we could have actually withheld, or sometimes money that we don't have on impulsive buying. It's a good example is you often would go into any of the supermarkets to buy bread, milk, and sugar. When you come out of there, you have got three bags of groceries. And then the thing is that now, after you have paid, you feel that, yes, some of the things that you have bought are actually even at home. But you do that, and that's that impulsive buying. And that's where the challenge is. Those are the low-hanging fruits where you can at least say, okay, let me not buy. For instance, at a place like your office here, there will be somebody walking around here with burgers, with merchants and stuff like that, walking up and down the street. Now, sometimes you have actually taken your lunch with you, but that person comes to the reception down there, and you are standing there at the reception, and you decide that, no, let me just get an extra merchant. And yet, you have got lunch.
Yeah.
And then the thing is, your lunch is forgotten. You might eat it in dinner. And those kind of things are where you start, where you can say, okay, this I can control. I cannot control the car payment or the mortgage. Those are standard payments. But there are small things. Okay, you hear that, okay, Edgar is having a sale. And then the thing is, you're just walking past there. Whether you are going to go in there and buy that suit while you have a few more suits already in your cupboard are some of those things that you can control, and that's where you start. These ones that you can control, you start tweaking here and there. Eventually, you gradually learn also that no. Initially, it's people say it's difficult. Yeah, lots of things are difficult, but you have got to start. And once you start saying, okay, do I really need that merchant? Do I really need that boerewors? Do I really need that biltong? Then you can say, no, not today. I say to my kids, you had this, maybe let's skip today.
Yeah.
And initially they had a problem, but then they said, okay, Daddy, I had a nice cheesecake, so I'm not gonna buy that biltong today. Now that's those small things, you can actually start with those. And then eventually we can look at others.
Yeah. How do you deal with the emotional side of things? Because if you feel like you are getting poorer because inflation is going up, but your income is stagnant, and then you start cutting down on some things. I mean, maybe your DSTV package, you used to pay this one that includes soccer channels and all, like for some of us. But eventually, maybe you cut only to news channels and whatnot. How do you deal with the psychological trauma that comes with really living with little than you used to?
Yeah. Now, actually, that emotional issue around money is not just about depriving yourself. Spending itself is emotional.
Yeah.
Spending is emotional, and then the thing is, first we have got to accept that the triggers that allow us to spend, even impulse spending, is emotional. Now, instead of looking at things as depriving yourself, I often used to ask, what is going to happen to me if I don't have a $800 or $900 bouquet of DSTV and I only pay $350 or $299 for the smaller one? And what I have come to learn is, initially you feel frustrated, but you come to terms with these things. It's the action of starting to do something. It's the action of starting to say, okay, I will do with less here. I'm not saying people should altogether cut off some of these things like emotional spending. I'm saying take back control. At the moment, control is somewhere else. All those loans that you have, revolving loans, control your income. I habitually used to come back home and then I'd pay up my mother's account at some of these places and I'd close it. And they'll manage perfectly well for 6 months. And then they'll go and find themselves back. And then I ask why, what happens. And lots of times they learn that actually you can do without. So although as emotional as it is, you have got to ask yourself, how does it deprive you? Does it reduce your quality of life? And the answer is no, not necessarily. But then the thing is, you just learn to do things slightly differently from the way you wanted to do. I mean, lots of people have got all those channels on TV and stuff like that. Most of them that they don't use. And when it is missing, you realize you make do without. I've stopped taking sugar. Initially, I struggled with the fact that I don't want to take sugar. I'm used to it. It's not a big deal. I've gotten on with it and nothing happened.
Yeah, because I think that to change habits, both for your own health, but also for your financial health, is also a big challenge. There are guys who used to have beer, now they say, nah, Beer is no longer my stuff, both for my health, but the fact that you're not sitting in a bar with friends every weekend again, and you are 5 guys, and somehow you have to buy a round for everybody. It's a lot. Now, one chapter here in the book, chapter 2, talks about the myths. And there's a line that says, another common misconception is that budgeting alone can solve the problem. If you can expand on what you mean by that.
Yeah. Now, lots of times people think that because they can sit down and draw up a list of what they are going to spend, that solves the behavior problem. Budgeting is a good thing to do, and that behavior is a good thing to do. But often what I ask people that I'm training is, how do you decide when you sit down and work out your budget? How do you decide how much you have spent on what? And more often than not, we have actually found out that people pull the numbers out of thin air. They don't actually write down what their actual spending is. Now then there is a problem there, that you are actually not reflecting what you do. You are reflecting what you think the budget should be. So I say, honey, how much did we spend on petrol? And then we say, let's just say 3,000. Then I write down 3,000. What about food? I think 3,500. Now, those numbers are not real numbers, but we have got also there in the book, we are saying, no. Budgeting itself is not enough, but there are things that you can do to help the process, and that's tracking your income comes and then supports the budget, because if you have been tracking your income, at the end of the month, you've got a spreadsheet that says this is how much you actually spent on food, this is how much you spent on petrol, and therefore when you put the numbers, now you are saying this is how much I spent on petrol last time. Do I really want to spend that much? Why don't I decide this time? Now you are taking control in that you are saying this is how much I want to spend, as opposed to giving us an idea of what the realistic budget should look like. Your budget is informed by you having tracked your spending for a couple of weeks, and that's what you use. And that's why I'm saying just sitting down and working out the budget is not enough. But if you're tracking your spending before you actually sit down and write your budget, it is realistic, and because it's based on what you have actually done, now you can tweak it and say that if I don't always go and visit my sisters every day after work, maybe I'd save a little bit of petrol, and therefore we are saying, okay, instead of spending 4,000 on petrol, we might be spending 3,500. So yes, budgeting by itself is not enough, but if we're combining it with tracking what we have been spending, now it makes the budget a little bit more realistic, and that's what I mean by what I'm saying there.
Absolutely. We go for a very short break and return with Seth Nowaseb. We are still talking to Seth Nowaseb, who is the author of the book, How to Manage Impulsive Buying and Get Your Finances Back on Track. Now, Seth, I think one thing that authors, I don't I don't want to make it sound like it's a fact, but I think that one of the biggest challenges in managing finances is accidental but imperative spending. If your uncle, God forbid, passes away today, it's very difficult to have budgeted for that unless you knew he was sick and maybe he will pass away. But accident, the man goes to sleep and never wakes up again, and you have to drive to Okombahe to bury your uncle or whatever. And many things just keep coming up. How do you deal with those accidentals that you cannot really pin down on paper?
Yeah, accidentals are like that example that you have used. But a lot of what we actually what we do is where we have got these black tax issues. Essentially, those are black tax issues.
Exactly.
Now, what I've often said to people is that we are meant to have an emergency fund. Lots of us don't have it, but we are meant to have emergency fund. Now, what I'm saying to people is that, look, there should be a little bit that you should put away. It doesn't matter whether it's $500 or $1,000 or $250, whatever it is, for exactly these kinds of things, because it might not be a death itself, but it might be an issue of your niece's child that cannot go and register before the free payments and stuff came.
Yeah, or even kept money to go to school.
That's right. And they are going to need, for the next 2 weeks, they are going to need a bit of money. Now, when you budget, that black tax has got to be budgeted. It doesn't have to be a lot, so that you are just aware that, and you say to people, there have been times that I have said to people that, unfortunately, I haven't budgeted this, and this is all that I can do. So we can still make a little provision. What I've said is that we are not saying that accidental spending and impulse spending should stop altogether. We are just saying that, can we rein it in a little bit, so that we have got a little bit more control. At the moment, we can go and spend $300, $400 on a day or two. We go out with the guys, and we might go and buy rounds and spend a lot more money than we are intending to. We are saying rein it in.
Yeah.
And if we rein some of these things in, if we, for instance, say, okay, I know that although I don't know where this money is going to be going, but let me put a little bit of this aside, so that if these kinds of situations happen, then you are going to have it. Of course, in our economy, being known for somebody who puts something aside for rainy day doesn't help, because it's precisely for that reason that some of the people are going to appear and say, no, he puts $1,000 away, let's create a circumstance. But you can quietly put a little bit aside, and then as an adult, you can make judgment on where you are going to place it, where you are going to help. But we are saying, even when those kinds of things happen, if you have put a little bit of something aside, you can help. There are occasions where you are going to be expected to do a lot more than you are planning to, and we cannot help those things. But then the thing is, you don't beat yourself up because that has happened, because that might happen on that occasion, but the next couple of months that kind of thing might not happen. So when that kind of thing happens, accept that that is part of life. We are going to address it and deal with it, and then hopefully other times we are going to control it a little bit more.
Absolutely. Then the book talks about this a part that talks about, it says, I have a rule, particularly in the early days of this transformation, your transformation now, that I use cash for all my purchases. And you are saying that it is very easy to spend more than planned if you are swiping or tapping. What do you mean by that?
Yes. Lots of times you'll find out, if you have got $200 in cash on you, and you decide you are going to use what you have, you are going to use that $200, and that's all that you are going to use. Or you are going to say, nee, I've got $200, but I want to keep $50 on me, and I'm only going to spend $150 that I have. But if you are swiping, and I think recently we've been tapping here also. I've seen now, I came back, I've seen some of the cards don't want to tap.
Yes.
But whenever you spend money using not cash, but the cards, you would end up spending $350, even though you were planning to spend that $150, because that's the money that you don't see. And lots of times that money that you don't see is a little bit trickier, because you spend a lot more of it. But if, for instance, you decide that every day or every week, I only have this much money, and that money is in cash, invariably you are going to spend less. And I have got my own experience when I control my money by using cash. Yes, you have got the cards you can use. And of course, spending cash is not as convenient as spending cards. But for that convenience, we actually end up spending a lot more. So what I'm saying to people is every week, put out a bit of money and try to see if you can manage with that, and say to yourself, for instance, if you only have got cash and you have got to go and use a cash point, it's also an effort. You have got to go and park there, and you have got to find a parking place. And from time to time, I've decided, it's taking a bit long, I'll do it tomorrow, and I've decided I'm not gonna bother.
Yeah.
So I sometimes have said to people, put cash aside and use cash, and try as much as you can to just work with cash, and you are gonna find out by the end of the week you spend a lot less than if you're swiping.
Yeah, it's a very interesting dynamic. For me personally, I'm a swiping guy or tapping whatever, but I never ever have cash. And the reason why I never have cash is also because and I'm not praising myself here, but I tend to give a lot of money to people. If somebody just walks into my office now and says, look, Chief, I have no cab to go home, I find it difficult to say I don't have when I actually do. So, but if I only have my card, obviously I don't have cash, I can't help you, sorry my guy. But I like what you're saying, to say that the labor that is involved in, but for me, it's actually the other way around, because the labor means I must find an ATM, I must go find the ATM and withdraw the money and whatnot.
Find a parking place.
Rather than just going there, I tap, I have my bread. So your argument is that having cash is easier and not just tapping.
Yeah.
Because of course you mentioned the danger of not seeing the money, you don't see it going.
Yeah. Now, exactly. But then the thing is, of course, the convenience of being able to tap, also that convenience has got its price. But you are absolutely right. You have been able to say that, look, it's a lot easier, and it's absolutely true, because it's really, really hard to sometimes say, no, I don't have, if you have. There are other people who are disciplined, and I'm going to say that money that's there was for this, and therefore, unfortunately, whatever the circumstances, I'm not giving that out. So different people have got, it's the inherent character also that comes into play, because I've said money is an emotional thing. Spending money is an emotional thing, and different people deal with it differently. Each of us have got to find. But what I'm saying to people is, there are those people who cannot help themselves. That when they go in there, they are going to go and spend $500 when they were planning to spend $300, because they are going to be swiping. And for those ones, I've been saying that, look, try it this way. Try to see if you can use cash. And it's not also something that is a hard and fast rule that you have only got to use cash. I found initially, when people are changing their behaviors, some of these methods helps in redirecting the way they have been doing things, because what we are actually talking about is the behavior change. How do we change our behavior in terms of how we are spending our money? And then we are going to learn a new habits, because we don't get taught how to control and manage our money. We get taught how to earn money, but whether we are at high school or college, we never get taught how to manage our money. And these tools are saying to us that we have struggled and we are at a place where we have got to do something else. Let's try this. For some people, it will work perfectly well. For others, they might need a little bit more help.
There's then the part that deals with rewarding yourself, rewarding your progress, where you say, set yourself small milestones, and when you reach them, reward yourself in a way that doesn't involve spending. A lot of people say, I'm going to a pub now, I'm going to have a big jug of beer to feed the body that makes the money. And that means spending money. But here you're saying that reward yourself, but in a manner that doesn't require money.
Now, although I'm saying that, I'm also saying a lot of this is not hard and fast rules. Some people, the reward in itself is about encouraging yourself to do those good things. Unfortunately, for some people, they are going to find it difficult to sit there and maybe bake a cake at home. They might not find a reward in playing games with their kids at home, and that might not be the exciting thing for them. And if the pint of beer is going to be exciting for you, that's good. That's not a problem. But I'm saying there are other ways of rewarding yourself. Instead of going to the restaurant and buying that cake, I'll stay with my family and I'll say, okay, kids, let's learn how to bake a cheesecake. And then we bake that cheesecake. Now we could have gone there and bought a cheesecake from one of the many places, but instead we would have used what we already have at home and do a cheesecake or bake a pizza, and then we would have done that. But we could have also gone to the park and let the kids run around cycling and stuff like that. Go to Dunfield, I don't know, go to this normal park here and go on roller blades and just go running around and have fun. So there are those possible things. But there are other people who absolutely have to reward themselves that way by spending a bit of a pint there. Absolutely okay. Because that's going to encourage you to go do a bit more of that. But if you can find ways where spending might be a little bit less, instead of buying so many pints of beers, or instead of waiting for happy hour, you can wait for happy hours and then spend a little bit less. So yes, by all means, don't stop the reward system, because it is saying that is there a way of doing it without spending money? By all means, reward yourself. If that's the way you reward yourself, it's okay, but others can do it by doing a few things with what they have at home.
Absolutely. Seth, you sound like a very stingy man, but I get where you're coming from. Tell us briefly just where the book can be found to conclude. We have 30 seconds.
Unfortunately, about the stingy bit, the family and friends will have to talk about it, but we by controlling a little bit, we have found out that we have been left with a lot of money, and then we use that money to go on holidays, have a bit more fun. So that's fine. The book, the number is here, 081 870 0085. You can just call that number. You can do e-wallets and stuff like that, and you can get the book from us here locally. And if you are outside Windhoek, you can also contact us at the same number, 081 8700 085, and you can get it from me, and we can connect here somewhere in Windhoek and give you the books. And of course, there is a book and there is also a workbook. What the workbook does is the book teaches you the principles of what you should do. The workbook challenges you. It has got spreadsheets, it has got tracking methods, and it has got game plans, and it actually challenges you to apply what you are learning from the book. And that's where we are.
Wonderful. And it's $250. As I see on the poster there. Thank you, Seth. I think the message is loud and clear. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. That is Seth Nowaseb. He's the author of the book, How to Manage Impulse Buying and Get Your Finances Back on Track. Just telling us about the book and the principles that comes with spending. Thank you for watching, and have a blessed Easter weekend.